lot of the ISOs that we talk to, they're excited about selling point of sale. And I always tell them, like, unless you have a way to support it, and unless you have a way to implement it correctly, it can be a challenge.
Hey everybody, my name is James Shepard. I'd like to welcome you to the Merchant Sales Podcast. Today we have an episode for you that's a little shorter because Patty is actually out sick this week, so she's not with me. But with everything we have going on in the payments industry right now, I wanted to talk about building brand with point of sale. Now, there's so many things as an ISO that you can do right now to kind of shift towards becoming a technology company, right? You can hire developers and build software. Or one of the things you could do is you can sell other people's software under their brand. Or what we're going to talk about today is you can white label someone else's technology. Still a lot of operational things for you to do there, but maybe you don't want to build your own software. You want to white label somebody else's. So I talked today to Vigyan from Quantic, and we talk about that option. Then in questions from the field, I talked to you about one of the other really important things as you start to become this tech company and you're seeing all these opportunities everywhere and this vertical I want to go after and this point of sale solution I want to offer. You got to be able to focus. And I talk about the importance of that and give you 3 ground rules to consider as you're plotting your strategy to focus as this integrated payments world is continuing to accelerate. So with that being said, this podcast is brought to you by Nativia. And so if you go to nativia.com/professional, check out their professional card. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. And also I want to mention that Quantic is not a sponsor. They're not a paid advertiser, consulting client, anything like that. This is just a great conversation with a great company in the industry doing some creative things. Let's go. Hey everybody, I'm here today with Vigyan Kaushik, also goes by V, the founder and CEO of Quantic. How are you doing today?
Great. Thank you for having me, James.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm really excited to talk about today building brand with point of sale. We've talked a lot about selling point of sale systems and, supporting point of sale systems and all of that. But I think what's interesting about Quantic is this focus you have on the white label approach and allowing the ISOs in the industry to really build their own brand with that. So before we dive into all that, though, been a little while since you were on the podcast, V. So tell us about your story for those that maybe don't know. How did you get into this crazy industry? And then what was your path to what you're doing today?
Sure. Yeah, definitely. I have interesting story. It kind of all started from owning a restaurant. So me and my wife, we own a couple of restaurants. And we were looking for a point of sale system. We invested in a couple of them. And we were part-time operators. So we always had challenges with non-cloud-based point of sale system because we have to go to the restaurant to pick up reports and things like that. Sure. So we started looking at a couple of different options, and cloud-based point of sale systems were very new at around 2013-14. So we didn't have a whole lot of options. So one day, me and my wife, who's a programmer, and also my 11-year-old son, who was kind of learning programming, we kind of, came up with the plan to really start building a small web application. And we thought that we'll just build a web application with a shopping cart, and then we'll try it out on tablets and iPads and see how that goes. And we did that, a little prototype of it. And we started giving iPads to customers to be able to review the menu and to be able to select items and add it to their shopping cart. And that worked out very well. And we got a lot of great feedback. So we started thinking further that what we can do with this. And we started building native application with a small team. And this is how we kind of really started building Quantic as a point of sale, and rest is the history.
I love it. That's great. How long have you been doing this, by the way, as far as in the current state of going after the ISOs and all that kind of stuff?
Well, we started as a direct sales model for a couple of years. And then 2018, we started opening market for resellers. And we started as direct resellers. And then around 2020, when our platform got a little bit more matured, we started offering white label solution as well.
Right. That's great. Okay, so my first question here, I think you're really well positioned to answer, and that is, why should an ISO consider white labeling a point of sale solution like Quantic and going to market versus selling somebody else's brand? I know there's kind of pros and cons, and I know also that you offer both options. I'm sure you have some people that just sell under Quantic and then others who want a white label. So can you give us a little context of that choice and why you think they might want to go one way or the other?
Yeah, for sure. So there's definitely a shift in the market where everybody is trying to sell the same thing under a different sales channel, and that approach kind of is good and bad. It's just like, obviously you can pick up something that you can start selling, but then it creates some challenges when you start building your own brand, or you're thinking of having a solution that really meets your need, or if you want to go behind after specific verticals. And for those ISOs, especially larger ISOs, it has been a challenge that they are all selling the same thing. And the white label solution really helps if you want to build your own brand with the specific set of features, or you're going after a specific vertical. It's not for everybody. We get this question a lot, like, well, I'm just starting my ISO, should I be becoming your white label partner? We get white label partner requests, a few requests every week. There are a lot of interest in the offering, but we obviously discourage people not to kind of really go to the white label route if they don't have a necessary infrastructure in place. But mostly it is helpful for organizations that are really looking to create brand awareness, and then they want to sell something that they like to own.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And so I think for we'll start with some cons. So I know, like, from the people I talk to, one of the concerns they always have is like, well, if I white label this system, I am getting brand value, but I'm also putting my brand kind of in the hand of somebody else to some extent. Right. And so there's a lot of times that concern of like, well, now, Quantic is under the hood, but it's me. So if there's a problem, my customers are like, well, you have a problem instead of Quantic has a problem. So I guess my two questions here are, first of all, how do you answer that concern? And secondly, to what extent is this white labeling technology versus white labeling technology support, like, what I mean? Is there infrastructure that's being white labeled as well? Or is it just, hey, you don't know how to build technology, but we do, here you go. And then you can support it. So I'm kind of curious to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, for sure. So one thing that I said, as I said earlier, is that white label is not for everybody.
Right.
As you said very well, that if you are not, if you don't have the necessary infrastructure, if you don't know how to support your brand, your customers, then you might actually create a problem for yourself. Like you just start offering white label software and you have no really legs behind it, then it could be a problem. So you definitely need some sort of infrastructure in place to be able to offer a true white label solution where you're not going to have customer service issues and things like that. But since we have been doing this for last few years, so what we have done to help our partners is that we have built different offerings around white label solutions. So we have white label support, we have white label implementation services and things like that, where they can leverage those if they don't have their own infrastructure in place. And they obviously can leverage or start building their own teams as they kind of get mature with the solution and offering. But in general, kind of the way I look at the POS play is this is not for everybody. Like right. a lot of the ISOs that we talk to, they're excited about selling point of sale, and I always tell them, like, unless you have a way to support it, and unless you have a way to really implement it correctly, it can be a challenge. But if you have that mindset, or if you have that process in place, then you can very well sell and be successful with the solution.
I love what you're saying. I really agree with all this because, and I didn't know how you were going to answer this. I didn't know that part of what you guys offered, but I agree with it because I think what I see a lot of ISOs who want to offer technology, but they don't want to become a technology company. And I think, what basically the white label, at least in my mind, is, you're cutting out this huge variable and expense, which is software development, which is like massive. Any of us that do this know this is a crazy, crazy, like if you're like, I think I'm going to go out and build some software. Well, that's like saying I'm going to go out and build a car. Do you know how to do that? Like if you don't, you're going to have to hire a lot of experts. It's going to be very expensive. So I love the idea of saying, hey, we can take the technology, but where I think the ISOs, like you just said, they have to understand you have to become a technology company. So that means you have to have support. You have to think through installation, implementation, how does it integration? How does this all work together? What does the merchant app look like as far as this seamless process? And that's hard as well, tying all these pieces together, hiring the right people, training the right people, right? Those are all challenging things, but I think for the ISOs today that really, like you said, they want to go after the point of sale market and all that. They really have to make a commitment to go after it. There is no magic wand that you can wave and say, well, I'm just going to go after the point of sale market. I don't really know anything about it. I don't really want to know anything about it. I don't want to hire anybody to learn anything about it, but it'll work because I'm going to white label this. That doesn't exist.
Yeah. Well, just white labeling, that doesn't help. And also, every business that you go after, every merchant is slightly differently positions, like depending on where they're coming from. If you're going after a competitor point of sale, then you basically have to understand how they have implemented, and if they have been using a POS system for a while, then everybody get kind of really accustomed to what has been implemented, and then it's kind of difficult that you put something out there and you drop the POS and you walk away and hope that it'll work. That's not going to really work. And a lot of the agent and ISOs that we work with, whether they're our reseller or our white label partners, we tell them that if you really want to make it successful, that you have to really invest and think about the implementation part of it, and you have to make that right in order to be able to continue to win the business. So that's kind of really what our approach has been. And one thing you said about the software development, that's actually a very important thing. We feel like every single day we're developing and a new set of features is never enough. Like we keep adding features after features, and we have a huge roadmap that comes from our customers and partners, the white label partners, submitting requests to us that they need this feature set, or they need this new functionality or new business rule that needs to be implemented. And it's like never enough. So like it's a whole building process is pretty intense. And then there's also a maturity period for the software. So you put anything out in the market, it's just going to take a good amount of time for you to kind of really experiment with different type of businesses, a different type of use cases, and then you have a mature product after several years of investing and grinding. So it's a lot that you have to put in if you want to do it. So this is why we offer this platform now, that if you're really serious about building point of sale, and again, I'll keep saying that it's not for everybody, but if you really are serious about building the point of sale and you want to use the platform that we have already built, and you want to put your brand on top of, and some of the customizations as well, that if you want to offer something slightly different than someone else who probably using Quantic point of sale as well. So you can certainly do that, but you have to be really thoughtful if you really want to use the white label point of sale.
Yeah, I like it. Okay, so let's get a little more specific here. One of the questions I had for you was verticalization. So obviously the market's been kind of overtaken by, and I think, I shouldn't say that. The market's, there's a trend towards being overtaken by verticalization, and I think we'll see that accelerate. So I'm just kind of curious, have you seen anyone using Quantic for this purpose? So maybe you could talk about what verticals you specialize in. And then also, I'm just, again, kind of curious, or is anybody using it to say like, well, we're going to use Quantic and we're going to white label it as specifically for, whatever, a certain type of, pizza shop or whatever. So just kind of curious about your thoughts on verticalization and how Quantic kind of is dealing with that trend.
Yeah, no, you're right. I think that trend we can see in the market as well, that now point of sale is becoming very specialty software for different verticals. We have been seeing this for the last couple of years, like CBD shops, smoke shops. We started building some feature set for them a couple of years ago, and it became really a huge hit and a good part of our customer portfolio that we support. But we do get these ISOs, usually large ISOs, where they want to verticalize the software after specific verticals. So we have been doing that. We have a few active partners that are really kind of we're offering solution to them right now. But the point of sale is everywhere. Like, it's not just a restaurant or just standard retail, but there are a lot of use cases in services as well. So we are doing that for ISOs, and I think it's a great approach. Like, if you understand the industry, you understand the vertical, you understand their business rules, I think you can support them better versus putting one sort of a standard solution, not knowing how they're going to use the point of sale. I think having the vertical specific strength in the point of sale makes a whole lot of sense, and we are doing that with the partners today.
Yeah, I love that idea. I think, for a lot of times, what's interesting, I find, is that getting something that works for a vertical, especially a physical location, shop that wants a point of sale system, it's usually much more about your knowledge of that vertical and the use case than it is the actual features. There's usually not, a ton of super specific features today. Now, I think down the road, it definitely will be as we get further down the integration path, right? But yeah, so I could totally see people taking and saying, well, I'm going to use Quantic, but I'm just going to go after this, pizza shop vertical, or I'm going to go after hair salon or whatever. So kind of following up with that, maybe you could share just real quickly. I mean, you have a pretty broad footprint in terms of, verticals that you service. So, maybe you could talk a little about that. What are some of these verticals that you go after that you specialize in so people could understand what you have available?
Yeah, sure. So as a white label or as a standard Quantic reseller, we offer a variety of solution for different verticals. We support all formats of hospitality solutions, in the sense like we offer full service, quick service, cafe, food trucks and things of that nature. But beyond that, we have been supporting our retail point of sale for the last few years, and we have a great solution for CBD smoke shops and gift shops and various other things. We actually have a limited offering for amusement parks as well at this time. That's a little bit customized solution, specific of the printing formats and things like that for tickets. But we are offering a variety of retail solutions today beyond our standard operations.
Sure. Yeah, I love it. So with one point of sale, you can kind of cover quite a few different verticals. Again, if you're maybe branding it for a certain vertical, then you could maybe go after another vertical down the road and make a different brand, but it'd be that same platform. One of the other interesting buzzwords we haven't heard as much about lately is omnichannel. But I know for the merchants, they think about it a lot. Talk about that a little bit in terms of, how are you enabling your merchants to have maybe that e-commerce store or, over the phone order, that type of thing? Give us a little context on some of the omni-channel stuff that you guys are working on.
Yeah, so omni-channel, you're right. Lately, what we're noticing is that businesses need a third-party delivery service or third-party e-commerce solution now in order to get customer to their door. And that's absolutely changing somewhat how people have used e-commerce in the past. For a small business, for a restaurant, for example, it is absolutely necessary to have a third-party service to be able to accept order versus having your own store. If you have, let's say if you're a very popular pizza store and you have drivers, you might potentially get order online through your own website. But for the most people, the solution that they really opt for is using third-party delivery services. And that has a significant impact on how people are using e-commerce or omni-channel today. But one area where we are seeing some growth and we're seeing some interest from our existing merchant and partners as well is that where they can order ahead and
Mm,
pick up in the store. So like if you have
sure.
your own website and you want to place order ahead and you go and pick it up, then that solution works well. But a lot of the delivery aspect of the e-commerce is kind of it is being controlled by third parties, and that's
Right.
definitely you can kind of see in the market.
Mm. Interesting kind of follow up to that. I love that you brought that up because I think integration is just becoming so much more important. You know what I mean? It used to be the kind of point of sale was like, well, you build this point of sale and, that's what it is. Now, though, like, it's DoorDash, it's Uber Eats, but I think also we're seeing, payroll integrations, QuickBooks Online integrations, eventually, insurance, et cetera, et cetera. There's all these things as you're getting into verticals. What are your thoughts on how that, how that's kind of impacting point of sale, this idea of integration, and what is your strategy as a CEO of a point of sale company to kind of adapt to this new world of like, wow, there's all these integrations out there that people are going to expect to have in a few years?
Yeah, sure, James. You bring really important point about the integration. Integrations, you are absolutely right, are they're becoming really important thing for any point of sale. As we talk about different verticals and industry specific software that are already out there. And if you're using a point of sale and you want to use the other software along with it, then you definitely need the integration. And we do have a long list of requests from our partners and merchant for integrations. And it just list is kind of keep growing. That they need
Yeah.
integration with payroll, they need integration with other things. And I think it makes a whole lot of sense as well. As a small business owner in the past, when we were operating restaurants, I can tell you that no matter how much I understood about the technology, it was very hard for me to really sit and kind of figure out everything with different tools. So the closer you can bring data is obviously is a better thing for
Right.
anybody. And if you have a payroll integration and you can run payroll from point of sale, obviously that'll be the best option for you to have, not spending unnecessary time. So we're kind of taking a different approach here with the integration, where we do integrate with a number of different third-party software. However, we're also are promoting our a new developer-driven approach to the integration. We have just launched last week our developer portal. So now
Oh,
Quantic
wow.
platform is open to third-party developers, where
Mm,
developers can come and write integration into Quantic. So if they need something quick, they need to extract a report for payroll company, or they need to do certain things, now they don't have to wait for integration from us. If they want to write their own integration, they can write their own integration as
mm,
well. So we have launched this developer portal with the same thing, with same approach, where, if you need something out of Quantic and you want to integrate, go ahead and build your own way of, integration, and
mm.
you can integrate with whatever you want to integrate. And our goal is rest of this year and next year, we're going to keep building the platform for developers, so that developers can integrate with Quantic with less,
Mm.
coding and things like that. So there's a lot of different
Yeah.
plans that are in place to enable different integrators to come on the Quantic platform.
One thing I really like about that approach is that, what strikes me is if you're going after a particular vertical, I talked about it earlier that there's usually only a few kind of core features that are super important. Usually it's the integrations that are actually harder because, these different platforms want some specialized integration with some marketing platform or whatever it might be. Um, and what I like about what you're doing is that, I'm not a big fan of outsourcing development as it from me personally. Like I have my own W2 developers to build core software, but where I have found a lot of success outsourcing is bringing things together. In other words, you can go to like an upwork.com or one of these freelancer sites and you can hire a developer to say, hey, we've got Quantic and we've got this
Mm-hmm.
marketing software. We need them to talk to each other. That is actually where you can get a third, a developer outside. So I think that's something where a lot of the ISOs that maybe they're not ready to make the plunge and say, well, we're gonna build our own software. That's a huge, as we talked about, a huge
Mm-hmm.
thing. But you might be able to say, hey, you know what? We're gonna get one developer, maybe somebody, a freelance, or even hire one developer, and their job is gonna be to help us with our integrations because we really want to go after dog groomers. And we recognize that dog groomers have special take care of your dog monthly insurance, or I don't know, whatever it is that we want to integrate, and you can
Yeah.
build those integrations.
Yeah.
And that's where, again, a developer that maybe doesn't have all the context for your business, they can take two pieces and they can tie them together. That's something that can be done. So I think that'll be very interesting to see how that develops, because it's like, I like your approach, because it's like trying to build all the necessary integrations for like 17 verticals would be a never ending challenge. But having the developer portal, leaving it to the ISOs to say, or come in and say, hey, we're gonna tie some of these things together for our clients. I think that's a really cool approach. Okay, so last question I have for you
Yeah.
is, let's talk financial model for a minute. Obviously, we can't. Yeah, I realize it's going to be different for different people, but just give our audience a little bit of an idea of how they would work with Quantic, both in terms of the kind of the white label or working under the Quantic brand. How does Quantic make money, and how do you partner with ISOs?
So we kind of follow a sort of a unique approach here with the pricing. Since we have been 100% dedicated to resellers, we don't publish our own pricing. So you won't find Quantic pricing on our website or anywhere else. Our pricing is based on the buy rate basis, where we have an agreement with an ISO or with a partner who is interested to sell Quantic as a reseller or white label, where based on their needs, how they want to structure the overall offering to their merchant, we can kind of come up with a buy rate for them. That some of our partners, they like to kind of have a simplistic pricing where they want to offer a one price for everything that comes with it. They don't want to have tier pricing and things
Sure.
like that. There are other partners where they want to kind of peel the onion a little bit, like, if you take this, then you have to pay this. So we kind of really don't dictate how they want to structure their pricing. We give them the buy rate for individual components, and then they can put together their price list. So this kind of gives them a kind of a liberty and freedom of having their own way of taking product to the market. We also offer a different servicing model as well. Like, as we were talking earlier about not having your own support or implementation teams and things like that, we do actually offer those services to reseller and white label partners, where they can come and then take the services from us. So we have a variety of solutions, and we're payment agnostic. So we got a lot of different ways. As we're 100% reseller driven company, we have plans for almost everybody based on how they want to take the solution to the market.
And then I guess the only other kind of natural follow-up to that would be, when you say processor agnostic, maybe you could expand on that a little bit more in terms of like, how do you have a lot of direct integrations with a lot of the larger processors out there, or is it, through gateways where there's that additional cost layer? Like, talk about the actual kind of payment integration side of it a bit, if you could.
Yeah, so we have direct integration with TSYS. That's where we have a direct relationship and certifications from TSYS Transit. However, other processors, we actually leverage PAX BroadPOS integration, which actually provide us kind of a layer to get into different processor networks. Beyond that, we do offer integration with gateways as well. But majority, I should say, 80% of our merchant base today leverage TSYS as their primary processor. Sure. Outside of that, we have some integrations with different ISOs as well, or processor, I should say, like Payrock, Clarent, and things like that. So we have direct integration with them. If you're writing with Payrock or Clarent platform, then you can always use our direct integration as well.
Got it. Good stuff. Well, this has been such an interesting interview. I love kind of seeing the evolution of it, and I think, honestly, for me, it's so interesting to see kind of how it's going to play out, because I think, on the one side, you definitely have all of these companies now that are starting up, that are going after one particular kind of sub vertical, right? In this POS side of things, and they have some unique advantages. But I think that for the ISOs, they have really struggled with that model of like trying to make those partnerships work. A lot of those companies just aren't good at partnering with them in the first place. So I think it's also really interesting to say, well, wait a minute, you could just take a POS platform, make sure you know what you're doing when you're going out to market and having that option. So I think it's a really cool way to go. So before we let you go, give us a little information about how to reach out for those in our audience who want to learn more about Quantic, potentially the white label or selling under the Quantic brand. Where would they go to learn more?
Sure. So the best place for that is our website, getquantic.com. There's plenty of information on the white label program as well as reseller program. There's a contact email address and phone number that they can reach out to us through that. But also they can reach out to us through social media channels as well. We're on LinkedIn and Instagram and all that. So yeah, we have different ways, and it's all of it is available on getquantic.com.
Awesome. Vigyan, thank you so much for your time today and your insights. I always enjoy talking with you. Appreciate having you on the podcast today. This week in questions from the field, I wanted to talk about focus, and I want to make it really practical for those of us in the payments industry today as a reminder to myself, but also as a reminder to others. I've had some really interesting conversations the last few weeks with individuals in our industry who've achieved a level of success. They're doing well, but they're really struggling to get to the next level because of a lack of focus. And so I thought I'd give a couple of interesting ground rules that might help you challenge some of your own assumptions about focus. First rule of thumb would be you should not have more projects or more areas of focus going than employees on your team. Okay, so what I mean by that is if you're an individual agent right now, you should have really one primary focus that you're working on or one big project. So that might be one particular vertical that you're going after, a point of sale system that you're bringing to that vertical. You should have a very narrow focus in that way, right? Now if you have maybe yourself and a business partner, so maybe there's two of you, well, maybe you say, you know what, we're going to try two different things and we're going to see what works better. You go after this vertical, I'm going to go after this one. You work on this system, I'm going to work on this system, and let's see what's better. Now, that's usually not optimal. In other words, the only reason you would do that is that you don't yet know which approach is the right one. But as soon as you determine which approach is better, you want to put as much of your resources as possible into that one approach. And that brings me to another ground rule, which would be getting a project off the ground. That's a rather complicated project that you want to get off the ground. Usually you're going to need about 3 employees to just get that off the ground to get it started. So when you think about this in terms of like a startup, right? If I said, hey, I'm going to go after a particular vertical, I would think of that as more of a startup. Usually we're going to have at least one person in sales, one person in support, and then one person handling IT or tech, right? So like in the podcast today, we talked to Quantic. So, let's say I wanted to use Quantic and I was going to go after, dog groomers. Well, I'd want to have one person on my team whose entire focus is getting in contact with dog groomers and selling them on our, point of sale system we've custom branded for dog groomers. I'd want to have one person whose entire job is making sure that those dog groomers get a good installation implementation experience. And then I want a third person on the team that would be a developer IT person to handle both the kind of really detailed technical side of things, but then also would potentially handle integrations where we need to maybe tie some software together as far as maybe it's again, like we use today, Quantic, tying them together with some other, software that we want to tie together. So, you want to make sure that you have that. And so as you think about that, as you're growing your team and you're thinking about your areas of focus, I just want to really kind of challenge you today as you think about these major things you're going after. Obviously, once you get any kind of positive momentum with a particular project, you're going to need a lot more than 3 people on that project. You're going to need 4, 5, 6, people on those projects. And so as you think about your focus, what I want to challenge you on today is how many things are you trying to do right now? And this is an area I always struggle with. I like to have multiple things going on, and hey, I'm doing this and doing that. But again, you got to challenge that and say, well, wait a minute, do I have enough resources, both in terms of time of the people on my team, but also bandwidth, right? To think about all these different things and get them going. And I think as a general rule, the right answer is to do less things. So think about all the things you're doing and say, which of the things I'm doing has the highest potential, the highest likelihood for success? And then just make sure that you're giving that project all of the resources that that project can take at that time. Right. And so, if you have other things that are stealing from that project, that's not going to be optimal. So my main, point to you today is, as we think about the payments industry, the level of complexity is going up exponentially, right, as we move forward. And at the same time, there's all these different opportunities, and it's kind of exciting to go, man, I could build this high risk portfolio. I could build this point of sale deal. I could go after this vertical. I could do this, other play. I could do that. I could do this. But I would say if, you shouldn't have more focuses than you have employees. You should have at least 3 employees working on one project that's really starting to scale up and like, hey, there's a potential here. You want to have 3 people on that project before you would even consider trying something different. And as a general rule, less is more in terms of, getting things accomplished. If you have something working well, make sure that thing has all the resources that it can utilize at that time. And only when you're like, you know what, I'm doing everything I can do for that thing, and I'm giving it all the resources I can, but I have some additional resources here. Then you say, well, maybe I'm going to try one other thing, but you got to make sure you're not starving your best ideas. So focus, focus, focus. That's really one of the main keys to success.